What's happening, everybody? Josh here from Spawn Fly Fish. Today we are back on the vise. We are tying the Lady Power Fly. This fly is out of Mike Yeagers' book, Flies of the Southwest. Although we don't live in the Southwest, this pattern is very, very useful here in our lakes and streams. The cutthroat love it, and it especially love it because it features some spawn semi-seal, and it's got that hot spot red tag tail. Follow along as we get into it. In the vise, to start things off, we have an Ahrex NS115 number 6. And for the bead, we have a Spawn football bead in gold in 6mm. So we're going to just use some thread here to lock it down and put it into place here. We're going to keep that slot on the bottom as best we can. Just hold it in place here with your 2 fingers until you get a bit of a thread dam there. So as you will see as we get into this pattern, that we'll be substituting a handful of the materials from Mike Yeagers' fly and kind of curating it to what we have on hand. That is totally okay. It's something that we see constantly, whether it's a pattern that we tie here on YouTube, it's a pattern that you see on Instagram, or it's a pattern like this one that you read about in a book. So draw some inspiration, and in this case we'll keep the entire structural integrity of this fly very, very similar, but we'll be swapping out for some materials. Alright, so we got a bit of a thread base here. We could use some lead-free wire there if you want to hold that bead into place, but it's going to work just fine nonetheless. First thing we're going to do is create that hot spot. Hot spots are phenomenal as an attractor, not just here in Southwest Washington, but across the country. And this attractor is something that really drew me to this pattern while reading the book. So throw a thread wrap on. We're throwing this hairline red Marabou just right on top here. We're going to work it back to the end of the curvature of the hook. Cut that off, tie it down. What I'm going to do right now too is I'm going to take my fingers and I'm going to pluck those fibers. I just want a short tag end here on these. Again, this isn't for the movement, it's for the hot spot. It's going to add a lot of attracting properties here. Sweet. Alright, so this is roughly the foundation for this pattern. Next thing we're going to do here is we're going to take some uni French tinsel here in gold. Just need a little bit of it, and we're going to tie that right on top here. Try and create a little bit of a taper to that front of the bead, but not 100% necessary because we'll be able to level that all out with Spawn Semi-Seal here shortly. Alright, work our way back forward, and there we go. Next step. Alright, for those of you that got this in a sample pack during our anniversary sale, or for those of you that have been scouring our website and making sure that you have every new Spawn Semi-Seal blend, this is a must-have. This is the Acid Rain in regular or standard Semi-Seal, not the Mega version. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start just behind the bead, leave a little bit of space because we do have some materials that are going to go in at the collar. We're going to dub our thread. Now we're going to start working our way backwards. Any given time, strengthen up that little dub noodle. Go right over top that tinsel. And when we get to where it's bent back here, we're going to lift it and we're just going to go one behind it. Kind of trap that there. Alright, perfect. Add some more dubbing here. And we will work our way back up to behind the bead. Again, leaving a bit of space, as I'm sure you can see there, because we do have just a few more materials that we will sneak in here. This Spawn Semi-Seal has a ton of depth. There's a lot going on in it, and they just cannot get enough. Many of the on the water videos over the last month and a half have utilized it. It was the cover photo on the Fly Fishing Waterfalls video. Many people wanted to know what it was. Now you know. Alrighty, we're going to get some nice even wraps here. First, we're going to brush it out just a little bit. You can brush it out before, after, or both. I'm going to do a little bit of both. Just want some of these to come out. Alrighty, here. I'm going to lock that in, but before I get too crazy here, I'm just going to check, make sure it looks good for the camera. That looks good enough for the camera, I would say, and definitely good enough for the fish. Alrighty, we'll trim that off, and I will strengthen down that tie-in, or that tie-down. And like I said, you can do some before, some after, or both. I'm just going to come in, brush it out just a little bit, get some of those trapped fibers to come out here, and just add to that depth in the color and the fibers. I like that a lot. Frankly, it would work great if we stopped just there, but we're going to keep going and continue to add some different dynamics to this fly. Alright, the next thing we're going to do, we're going to take some Spey Hackle here. We'll want some of the shorter feathers here. We don't need a big long one, so this one's going to work just good, just fine. So we'll pluck that guy out. We're just going to get a couple wraps here. We don't want them to be crazy long, that's the biggest thing, so we're going to stay near the tip. Brush those fibers down a bit. Tie it in here. We'll shoot for just a few wraps. We don't want a lot. We're just adding some levels to this pattern here. 2 wraps. Let's sneak a couple more in there. Make sure that we get some even distribution. We just want to make sure that you can really see that spawn Simi seal underneath. I mean, we might be a little biased in that, but assure you that that's what you want to be able to see. That gold ribbing, that red hot spot, and then these are going to add some movement. Again, adding some profile too as you strip this fly through the water. So far, so good. Alright, the last element of this pattern here, we're going to take a little soft hackle feather here from Hairline and Grizzly. And so if you're using some of these fibers on a different pattern, I don't really want these straight ones. I want in here. This is what the pattern calls for. I really like it. In many cases, you've utilized this part of the feather and you have the back section or the butt section left, but we're going to just utilize that section from the get-go here. So we're going to trim that off just a tad. Make sure we can get a really secure tie-in. We just want a couple wraps of that, so cut it there. We'll tie it down. Trim off that tag. And again, mindful of the spawn Simi seal. We do not want to cover it up, but we do want to add this last element to this pattern. We're not going to get a lot of wraps due to this section of the feather that we're tying in, which is a-okay. Pluck that down so I can get a good tie-in. The good thing about this section of the feather is it is not a weak section, so you don't have to be as gentle as you have to be with other sections of the feather. Looks like we got a couple people coming in the shop. I'm gonna have to wrap this up as quickly as possible. You also can use a little bit longer of a hook if you want. That's another option. But this looks pretty good to me. I'm going to get a couple more wraps there and then whip finish. We'll throw one whip finish in. Stay out of there. Need to just give it a little bit. Your saliva or water cup that you got next to you. Slick those materials back. And there, now we're about to get a proper whip finish in here. Works for me. Trim that off. Make sure everything looks alright. Looks pretty good. A little heavy on this side. I'm going to pluck a couple of those fibers out. Just being picky. And there we have it. I'll throw in some head cement off camera here. If that's what you want. You want that spawn Simi seal to shine through. You want these materials to really flow through the pattern. That red hot spot. Got a spawn football bead and spawn Simi seal in there as well. This is a great pattern. Tie one up. Use what you have at home, or get these materials, or follow the instructions in Mike Yeagers' book. We hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to hit like, hit subscribe, and we will see you guys next time.